All right, so number 7, on number 7, we have average rate of change, which is slope. Now, slope is something you learned in middle school. I learned it 8th grade. You guys probably learned it 7th. I mean, I remember that day well. Slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It's been that way since I was a kid. It'll be that way till long after I die. These are your x's. This would be x1 and this would be x2. So 8 minus 1 down low. I think about half the student body missed that on the previous one. When x is 8, y is 12. And notice the lineup. 8 goes with 12, horizontally and vertically. Minus, when x is 1, y is 10. So 12 minus 10 is 2. 8 minus 1 is 7. 2 sevens. Number 8 probably got right by about 2/3 of the junior class. It says using the QF. And there were a couple of kids who tried to do this without the QF, which means they didn't understand what I meant when I said using the QF. And then x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I saw where a lot of kids didn't make a negative a positive here. This would become positive 8 plus or minus. You guys happen to be button pushers, so make sure you wrap that negative 8 in parentheses and it's squared. Several kids didn't have the quadratic formula correct. Minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is a negative 3. So I have a tendency to do a lot of things by hand. A negative 8 squared is 64. A negative times a negative is positive. 4 times 2 is 8, times 3 is 24. And 64 and 84 makes 88. Oh, by the way, it was all over twice a 2. So what am I sitting at now? I've got 8 plus or minus the square root of 88. Both pieces over 4. So if I break that apart, I'll have an 8 over a 4 plus or minus something. So I'm going to play with root 88. Root 88 is probably 4 times 22. So root 4 times root 22. And that is as small as it'll go. Root 4 is 2, so 2 root 22. So plus or minus 2 root 22, sitting also over a 4. Now 8 over 4 reduces to 2. 2 over 4 reduces to a half. There you go. 2 plus or minus root 22 over 2. Some of y'all do things that you're not instructed to do. Like you cannot divide 22 by 2. You are making things up. And then you'll be like, well, why can't I do that? I don't know. Push buttons on a calculator, kid, and see that it's not the same. Moral of the story, don't do something unless you were taught to do it. Number 9, which of the following is equivalent to the 4th root of 625? You're supposed to understand your x to the p over r notation. The 625 has an understood exponent of 1. So this is actually 625 to the 1/4, which is choice 2. Now, some of you special kids may not know what the 4th root of 625 is, but if you can get down to that, you can type in 625 to the 1/4 power. That'll tell you it's 5. So there's another choice. If I don't know what the square root of 25 is, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have a hard life, but square root of 25 is 5. So choice 4 is also correct. If I don't know what the cubic root of 125 is, I can type into a TI-84 125 to the 1/3, but you should know that. It's also 5 because 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. See? There we go. You know, your quiz said select 4, and a lot of kids only picked like 2 things. One kid only picked 1 thing. It literally said pick 4. All right, 10 says use synthetic division to factor given f of 3 is a 0. And this is saying that x is 3, by the way, which means that when I factor, I'm going to have x minus 3 as a factor. So that's part of it. Since x is 3, that's what I put out front. We have a 1, a negative 3, a 16, and a negative 48. Those are our coefficients. We drop the 1, then we multiply. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. Remember the acronym is drop, multiply, and add forever. 3 times 0 is 0. 16 plus 0 is 16. 3 16s makes 48, and there's a 0. The 0 is the remainder. Preceded by a remainder is a constant. Preceded by a constant is an x, and preceded by an x is an x squared. Bummer, and I've already made copies of this. Okay, so I'm left with x squared plus 16, which does not factor over the real number system. Now, some of you are probably thinking, why doesn't it factor? Well, you might try x plus 4 and x plus 4. And if you did that, you'd have x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16, which is not x squared plus 16. It just doesn't factor. It's just the way it is. It's prime. Its only factors are itself and 1. So I made a sign mistake because you're supposed to do more with that one, but that's how it factors. It factors as x minus 3 times x squared plus 16. It's too bad I've already made copies. All right, given 3 terms of the sequence, negative 3, 10, 23, write a rule for the sequence. When I glance at this, I notice that the difference is that I'm adding 13. Because that's what we're doing. If you don't understand that, you go to a TID4 and you type in 10 minus a negative 3. Make sure you go hug all your previous teachers for promoting you. 13 kids. All right, so since I'm adding 13, it's arithmetic, which is this guy right here. This probably was right by about 80% of the student body, which is pretty good. So the nth term is the first term of negative 3 plus parentheses n minus 1 times the difference of 13. And we invoke the distributive property. 13 times n is 13n. 13 times negative 1 is minus 13. Combine your like terms. I'm missing a letter here. N. So I'll have 13n, negative 3 minus 13, take away 16. There you go. Moving on to 12, another arithmetic sequence is given as 211. That should be an 18. Boy, that thing is full of typos. 21120 is what should be there. Bummer, I've already made copies. Oh well, hopefully you'll watch the video. 21120, find the sum of the 4th through 9th terms. So the difference here is 9, which means that the 4th term is going to be 29. That is going to be followed by 37, which is followed by, not 37, 38, which is followed by 47, which is followed by 56, which is followed by 65, which is followed by 74, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 3 to go, which is followed by 83, which is followed by 92, which is followed by 91, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then I go push buttons in a calculator. Now I'm not going to push these buttons. This is what I think y'all should do. Probably about 9 or 10 of you are where you really need to be, and you're going to be thinking about formulas. So let's find n. It's 12 minus 4, add 1 back. 12 minus 4 is 8, add 1 back, you get 9. I'm going to use that formula right there. The sum of 9 things is 9 over 2. The first guy is 29. And pretend I never did any of this. Like pretend I never did this. Okay? To find a of 12, I take formula right there and I plug into it. It is going to be the first term, which was 29, plus 12 minus 1 times a difference of 9. So 29 plus 11 Oh, Milbrath. That's not 29. That's 2. Plus 11 times 9, which is 101. There it is. 101. I ain't writing ahead today, am I? Glad I checked myself. 101. I actually have more luck with formulas than writing things out. So anyways, push buttons on a calculator. You got your 9 over 2. Inside you got 29 plus 101. 505. 585, I think. Yeah, 585. Good thing I did it 2 different ways. Otherwise, I would have missed it the first easy way. And that is the problem with writing things out. I know that I am guilty of making simple mistakes when I write out, and I know lots of kids are too. But when you talk about as a class average, there is more success as a whole when kids write things out. So you pick your pill. Red pill, blue pill, don't care. Pick it. All right, geometric sequence is given as -5 to -4/5. Write both a recursive and explicit rule for this sequence. So you're going to use a slightly different form other than the piecewise. Your explicit, which was given to you on your quiz, is that the nth term is the first term times the ratio raised to the n minus 1. And your recursive is going to be a sub n minus 1 times that ratio r. And then you define the first term, because recursive rules always require the first term. So that's why it'll say a sub 1 is something. To figure out your ratio, you take the second term and you divide it by the first term. So the second term is 2. You divide it by -5 and you get -2/5. It's not hard to do. And now let's do our explicit. Which is this guy right here. First term is -5, so a sub n is -5. The ratio is -2/5, and we raise it to the n minus 1. To do our recursive rule, all we do is we put that -2/5 right there. -2/5 of a sub n minus 1, which means previous term. Then comma, the first term is -5. It's really easy. Y'all just don't like forms. They confuse the crap out of you. All right, 14 is a y1, y2 problem. I'm going to do it by hand first, and then I'll do y1, y2 just to make sure I'm correct. The key word here is sum, which starts with an S, so I'm using that formula right there. So 14,348,906 must equal the first term of 2 times 1 minus 3 to the n over 1 minus 3. Now, if I think about this part and this part, I'm going to have 2 over a -2, which is -1. I just don't want to write down all these intermediate steps. So 14,348,906 equals -1 minus 3 to the n. I'm going to drop the parentheses. I don't actually need them because this is positive. And I could distribute the negative. I could. Or I could just divide it out, which is what I'm going to choose to do. -14,348,906 equals 1 minus 3 to the n. I'm going to subtract 1. -14,348,907 is -3 to the n. I'm going to divide out my negativity one more time. 14,348,907 is 3 to the n. And now I'm going to do log as bay. I have an exponential function that I can convert to a logarithm. I have a base of 3. That's my exponent, which means that all this is my argument. So a log whose base is 3 and whose argument is 14,348,907 is equal to n. And I'm going to push buttons in the calculator using change of base. The natural log of 14,348,907, sitting pretty over the natural log of 3, is n. I know for some of y'all that seems like a lot of work. Don't go into STEM. I don't know why I'm typing in commas all of a sudden. You don't do that in a calculator. I also don't know why my calculator wants to be minimized. $15. So that's how you do it by hand. It's a lot of work. It is. If you want to do the y1, y2 approach, you're going to have an equation that looks like this. It's going to start off just the same as I started. And don't do any math. I saw this happen a lot on the last quiz. Some kids would do some math and then they would switch over to y1, y2. If you're going to do y1, y2, don't do any math, because the problem is about half the kids who tried doing some math first and then switching over to y1, y2, the math they did was wrong. So don't do any math. We have a 2, then math, num, n over d. And I actually put the 2 up top, which is fine. Since I put it up top here, 1 minus, I'm going to use the parentheses just to keep sure you all stay in that habit of parentheses. We don't have an n key, we have an x key. And if I don't know what 1 minus 3 is, the calculator shall not judge me. Anyway, zoom 6. Now, you didn't see anything because you put 14 million into Y1. So, window, Y max, 15 million. I think I just typed in 150 million. Yeah. Graph. I already know the answer is 15, so I'm going to have to look to the right. But let's see what happens. I'm probably just going to see a flat line. I don't think I'll actually ever see it start to increase because I'm zoomed so far out. I don't think some kids realize that. It was starting to increase right there. You can just see it start to move up. But anyways, I'm going to look out to 20 because I know it's enough. Graph. There's my intersection. Second trace, 5. Enter, enter, enter. And there's my answer, 15, just like it was by hand. All right, moving forward to 15 is a complete, notice it says the word completely simplify the expression such that all exponents are positive. So let's talk about these e's off to the side. You have an e to the negative 4 over e to the negative 7. If an exponent is positive, it's on the wrong side of the divisor. So this becomes e to the 7th up top over e to the 4th. Now, we have a property that says x to the a over x to the b is x to the a minus b. So this becomes e to the 7th minus 4, which is e cubed, and it remains, it's up top because I took 4 away from 7. Also do this, the 55 over 25. I guarantee you on any standardized test that you take, that just knowing how to simplify 55 over 25 will make it a 50-50 question. If it is a true standardized test that's gone through all the rigors of being called standardized, two of the answer choices are going to be wrong based on simplification of the fraction. So 55 is divisible by 5, that's 11. 25 is also divisible by 5, that's 5. So I'm looking for something that has 11/5. That has to be there. The last bit of simplification is the x's. You have x to the negative 23rd over x to the 14th. If an exponent is negative, it's on the wrong side of the divisor. So we're going to shift that 23 to the denominator. And we have a property that says x to the a times x to the b is x to the a plus b. So we add exponents, 23 and 14 makes 37. X to the 37th. Final answer. All right, another one of these completely simplifies. So it's first thing to focus on is the fourth root of 243. If a number ends in a 3 or a 7 or a 1, it's probably divisible by 3. That's just the way it works. So I'm pretty sure that 243 divided by 3 is 81, and it is. So this is the fourth root of 3 times the fourth root of 81. Now, I broke it into that because I have some number sense. I know that 81 to the 1/4 power is 3. By the way, fourth root is the 1/4 power. And it is. So this ugly thing right here becomes 3 fourth roots of 3. Some of y'all are still struggling with simplifying square roots. Need to work on that. Let's talk about the individual pieces here. We have the fourth root of x to the 16th. If you take 16 and divide it by 4, you get 4 with a remainder of 0. This becomes x to the 4th. So there's a 3, there's an x to the 4th. Let's talk about the fourth root of y to the 13th power. If you take a 13 and divide it by 4, 4 enters 13 3 times with a remainder of 1. So y cubed stuck inside was that 3, and there's still 1 remaining y. 3x to the 4th, y cubed, fourth root, 3y. There's a complete simplification of 16. 17 was not meant to be a hard problem, but about 20% of y'all missed it on the last quiz. And it's something we've been doing consistently on a weekly basis for a long time. So I was pretty disappointed in that. But anyways, in Y1, and I even gave change of base. That's what's blowing my mind. I had kids write down the original equations. It literally says if you can read to use change of base. This one would be the natural log of 2x minus 6 over the natural log of 2, and then take away 3. Y2 is going to be this guy, the natural log of 4x minus 9 over the natural log of 4, and then plus 1. And that's how I'm going to push buttons in a calculator. So I'm not sure what y'all's issue with this is. My guess is it's a careless mistake, as in you could care less. Not that you're making careless mistakes. Literally, you could care less. Oh yeah, I need to go to math, num n over d. So we have the natural logs of 2x minus 6. That's sitting pretty over the natural log of 2. And that says minus 3. There's my y1. Math, num n over d. Natural logs of 4x minus 9. And that's sitting pretty over the natural log of 4. And then plus 1. Zoom 6. Remember, calculators do not draw logarithms correctly. This one has an answer, but it's harder to get than the rest of them. Let me snipe this. Or snip it. First off, I'll make your quiz a little bit different so that you don't have to play with the window. At least that's my intent, but calculators don't draw logarithms correctly. I did this in class one day. Riley, is there anything else you need to make up? No, we're good. So anyways, there's no intersection here. The logarithms basically fall straight down. There's not going to be intersection here. What you can tell is this blue one is catching up to the red one. So there is one somewhere off to the right. Those two are going to catch up. So I'm going to set my x max to be 50 and see if it's enough. X max is 50. Graph. And wait. $50 isn't going to do it. Okay. Let's try 500. And it looks like 500 did it because it looks like it's somewhere around here, close to 200 maybe. So second, trace 5. Enter, enter, enter.
Teachers calling me are moving the students who are working the morning shift of the backpack program to please come to the lobby.
259.7478. Seven, 4, 7, 8. 2 to go. I'm gonna do 19 and then go to 18 because 18 is the one that y'all don't like. Number 19 is average rate of change, which is just slope. Slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Anybody who's been through 7th grade knows that. At least you're supposed to. But if you give a formula quiz, a lot of kids leave for formula for slope blank. I completely wrote that wrong, didn't I? y2. So y2 is negative 9. We're taking away y1. y2 is 3. We're taking away y1, which is negative 9. And we're over 3 minus a negative 1. That's going to give us 12 over 4, which is 3. It's just slope. It's easy. Although I almost messed it up myself. Identify the transformations of the graph shown using the function notation. These are kind of hard. I don't disagree with that. Maybe it's something I should literally push down kids' throats every single day, or at least every week in Algebra 2. Probably should. All right, so looking at this one, I know that it has been reflected. It has flipped. So let's write down the words of what I know. It has been reflected, which means the equation has been multiplied by a negative. Okay, so that has happened. I also know that it has shifted from -3 to 2. So it has shifted right 5 units. Because that's the difference between -3 and 2. It's 5. All right, so let's talk about a form. The form we use is y equals a/f's of x minus h and then plus k. And I am not worried about k right now. I'm legit telling you that. I am not worried about k. This problem does not involve k. If a kid glanced at this, they would think that it does involve k because k is the vertical shift. And if you just glance and don't think, you will think the shift up is 15 units because you've gone from -5 to 10. But I'm telling you, it has not been vertically shifted. and I will try to explain that to you, doing things you don't necessarily like. The original equation f of x is in the form x minus h quantity squared. There's an a too, by the way. A times x minus h quantity squared plus k. So the initial slope here, because each block is half a unit, is to rise 1 and run 1. So a is 1. If we take away a -2, we get +2, quantity squared, and then -4. All right, hopefully you're good with that. It has become something else. This one has fallen 2 units and run right 1. So its initial slope is negative, so a is negative. Let me write down what it becomes. It becomes g of x, which is a -2 times x, not +2, -2. I got some points mixed up here again, didn't I, kids? That's a 5, and that's a 3. Forgive me. I'm looking at the wrong point. -3, -5. X minus 2 quantity squared plus 10. So my job is to figure out what happened. Okay, so some of you guys may remember this and some of you may not. The order of transformations is Bach, B-H-A-K. B is a no-go in an Algebra 2 class, barely a go in pre-calc, because B makes things way harder. So we're going to focus on Hock. All right, so let's just lay this out. So first off, g of x, if we apply the h, what we've done is we have gone from 3 to -2, which means that inside we have actually taken away 5 units. All right, that comes back to this shift right. So inside is an x plus 5. Quantity squared. And we still have the -5. But this is the first thing. We handled h. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to handle a. A from up here is -2. So I'm going to take the original equation right here. I'm going to put a -2 out front of it, all the way out front of it. And then I'm going to distribute it. That'll give me -2 x plus a. I don't know why I wrote +5. Oh, I know why I did that. This should say this is me being tired, not thinking. This should say f of x plus 5, then -2. Why is that in there? Okay. When I distribute that -2, what I have is -2 f of x plus 5 minus plus 10, because a negative times a negative is positive. And I kind of borked that one up again. I'm really good at that. This is what I'm trying to type. That's what I'm trying to type. That's the transformation rule, and that's part of what it is. You're figuring out the individual steps that make this become that. And I had something really lined out in my head and I couldn't put it down on paper quite the way I wanted it to. There's 18, man, and they are rough. They are really rough. Might be a miss, might not be. Maybe some of y'all will figure it out. But I'm telling you on your quiz, don't even worry about K. Focus on the initial slope that's happened and focus on the shift. And that's what you need to focus on. Focus on the horizontal shift and the initial slope. That's what you focus on. All right, there's that twin. Finally done.